1. I work setting up appointments as both a call and chat agent. This happened when I was working as a chat agent specifically. At my job, our centers and call center itself are separated, with the CC being open 7 days a week. Even in hours, the centers are still closed. Due to this, it's not uncommon for us to get clients of the centers wandering in and wanting to change their appointments, cancel service, or even complain about their treatment. We aren't able to help with every request, but we assist as well as we can. This happened today, and I'm still working from home and laughing about how ridiculous this situation is. This person, Abigail, sends a text talking about wanting to set an appointment and visit us, and that she needs it urgently for today. I ask her what's happening, and she describes the situation. She mentions she had a procedure done yesterday and wants to remove today. I ask her if she's a client, since we're open yesterday and might have done the procedure for her. She says she's not. I ask her then if she suffers from anything we can help with, since my job only deals with a very specific set of people. Think about a restaurant that only serves Italian food. She says she doesn't. I tell her that not only are we closed today, we also don't deal with that, and to find someone who's open that would be able to help her with that. She insists I give her advice. I tell her I'm not a specialist and can't help. She asks for me to speak to one. I tell her we are closed. This same exact conversation goes on for about 30 minutes, until after I explain in no uncertain terms that we cannot help her, and since we do not offer this at all, there is nothing else I can do. She switches to all caps and all but yells at me through text. Thankfully, my job has a policy that after you have attempted enough times to assist someone, you can just close the chat if they're wasting your time. I close the chat and go on my merry way, and this is where things get fun. My chat limit is of just about 4 chats, which means I can have more than one person at a time. I'm busy assisting someone else when I get a new chat. It's her again. She accuses me of not helping her and says she will get me fired. I close her chat and don't say anything. Now I can disposition it as a prank, which means I can close any chats from her as soon as I know it's her. 5 minutes later, she texts again. She is yelling at me. I close the chat. Another few minutes passes by. And it's her again. Now instead of feeling exasperated, I'm having fun. I let her seethe and yell for about 5 minutes. Then I wordlessly close the chat. It's the most fun I've had all day. She texts me a 4th time, and as soon as she says it's me again, I close the chat, leaving her mid-writing. We now reach the end game. This is the last time we spoke, and she once again texts me. Now she's asking a question. She is asking if I can say something. I tell her to go ahead. She's typing about how I didn't help her. I close the chat. This has been the best hour of my job so far. 2. I work for the call center of a major international automobile manufacturer. I was the 3rd agent to catch this particular customer. I bent over backwards for them, and it's still not good enough. Customer purchased a vehicle in December. He had wanted his payments to come out on the 1st of the month. Instead of accommodating the customer and writing the contract up that way, the dealer said call in and have it changed at the call center. Customer said sure and went on his way. Now, like I said, I was the 3rd agent in his file, so I am not quite sure how it happened, but the customer sent in thousands of dollars of lump sum payments in. I suspect he did this before all the information was in the system for his loan, but I can't confirm that's what happened. What did end up happening, though, that instead of applying to this loan balance, it gave him a credit balance, and then his first payment came and it was taken out of that credit balance instead of his bank account. Customer calls in, gets the misapplied payments fixed. Unfortunately, it then reversed his first payment on the vehicle. Customer then tries to get his due date changed. The agent who spoke to is a rep who has been at this company for a while. He is one of the guys we contact for help. Again, I don't know the entire story since there were no notes as to what happened, and the rep didn't tell me. But the due date change got delayed. The rep reached out to the customer freaked out on the rep hung up on him. Customer called back and got me. So I start going through all the issues on the account, explaining what I can do to the customer. Now, we can only move someone's due date further into the month, never forward. And to move that due date to the first of the month, it can only happen within a certain time frame. When things are working perfectly, customers never even know everything we do to set it up for them. So when we make a mistake, it can delay things. So, I went over everything with the customer, the misapplied payments, the past due balance, the due date not being changed. Customer asked for the balance of the loan because he thought maybe he might just buy out the vehicle and be done with it. Sure, no problem. Let me send you that documentation. Customer then tells me that he needs time to go over the info and make a decision. Could I call him back tomorrow? Here's the thing. I'm not allowed to just call someone back. If I am going to follow up with someone, I need to get team leader permission because the queue could be flooded. So I do not like arranging callbacks because I can't for a specific time. But because there were so many issues in his account, I said sure, I promised to call him back the next day. So I call him back, and I get I have been really busy, I haven't had time to go through everything, can you call me back on Friday? Again, not thrilled, but I'm trying to make up for past mistakes. I arranged to call him back on Friday. Same song and dance on Friday. Can I call Monday? Fine, whatever. It would be my pleasure to follow up with him on Monday. Great. Monday. Same thing. Except this time I caught him at the gym and he couldn't talk. Maybe it would be better to use email instead. Sure. Great. Works better for me because I don't need to be calling a team leader to chase this guy down anymore to see if he still wanted to change his due date. I sent him an email, as requested, with what his options are. He decides he's just going to leave everything as is. Great, awesome, a decision! Sent an email back reassuring that nothing has been touched on his account. Here are some ways to pay off your past due balance. Customer responds with, "Explain to me again why this isn't affecting my credit." Simple, sir. We only report to the credit bureau if you're over 30 days past due, or if you give us an NSF. Because you made a payment, part of the due date change is we have to manually debit his bank account on the day he wishes to have it changed to. It applied against the past due balance first, which then makes the current balance go past due. You make a payment every 30 days, so the payments made are always going to apply against the past due balance, wiping it out before we report, and then the current balance goes past due. Customer emails back, "I don't understand, but this is taking up too much of my time. It's not my fault I have a past due balance. It's yours. Make it go away." I am not authorized to credit back so much as a penny. This guy has kept me running after him for 2 weeks. Now out of the blue, he just wants me to wipe out his balance. I just can't do it. Even if I wanted to, I just can't. And the tone and phrasing in his email is super snarky and rude, complete with threats of legal action should his credit be impacted. I emailed him back advising him that we had spoke about the past due balance before, what it was from, how much it was. I am not authorized to credit anything. All I can do is escalate it to the department that handles credits. The kicker is he's not going to get it credited because it's a valid charge and it reversed because he demanded it to be. It will take 2 weeks at least to get someone from that department assigned to deal with him, and he is currently 22 days past due. If for some reason there's a delay in taking his next payment, his perfect credit is going to be ruined. All because at the last minute he wanted a power trip. If he had mentioned this prior in the 2 weeks I was chasing him, I would have gotten him to the right department to suppress credit reporting as he was disrupting the payment. Instead, I created and escalated the case before logging out because my shift had ended before I got his email. And then, 20 minutes later, I collapsed onto my kitchen floor in a crying heap from the stress. I am now out on stress leave. I hope he stubs his toe every day for the rest of his life. 3. Over a year ago now, I worked for around 2-3 weeks at a Canadian call center. The main goal was helping non-profits connect with their donors, and seemed really nice initially. Management seemed really kind and supportive, but it became obvious later that they were really fake. They also said they didn't do cold calling, but the majority of calls were from people who had already asked to be taken off the call list years ago. Unsurprisingly, most of the money raised went to the call company as well, not the charity. You were forced to ask for money from people who had already said that they are struggling financially, and that unless someone literally stated they cannot afford to put food on the table, you still had to ask them for money. There was a thing called a first, second, and third ask. If someone said no the first time, you were meant to ask again. Third ask, you started bringing up guilt-tripping facts like Sick Kids Foundation, start listing cancer statistics, and how miserable these kids are. I spoke with management and they confirmed that even if someone says they're elderly and have no income, to still ask them for money. One time, I called an old woman who told me she was in the hospital after back surgery. She was retired, she had no income or pension, she was crying about being in pain. Management was DMing me the whole time, telling me to keep asking her for money. Other examples are we are told to ask for money from people who are undergoing surgeries, on maternity leave, etc. Management would only like you if you did whatever they want and didn't ask questions. The workplace was very unprofessional. The literal CEO of the company would respond snarkily or rudely to negative Glassdoor and other platform reviews, and the job posting, which is up 24/7, is littered with fake reviews to keep it balanced, instead of the 1 star or less it should be. The CEO also responded with around 5 paragraphs to a small blog post that had a negative critiquing comment about the job. I felt like most of the higher-ups were delusional or blinded themselves by the idea that they were doing this for charity. It's not kindness to harass people for the good of other people. The only reason they could possibly think they were being decent people is if they deluded themselves into thinking the charity mattered more than the well-being of the individual people being called. You were only paid for time when you were logged in for calls, and calls were generally back-to-back. I did around 200+ calls a day. Sometimes I had to bring my laptop to the bathroom with me if I needed to pee. Only one 15-minute break per day was paid. I was called into management to discuss the fact that I was not harassing low-income, elderly, etc. people for money after they told me they can't donate. I had to take my roommate to the hospital the same day, so was unable to get a second chance to fix what they were asking me to fix, as they decided to fire me the next day. This job had zero stability, and I also initially saw 11 people enter training. And only 4, including myself, lasted 2 weeks. One of the people in my training group who had the best stats and was praised most out of all of us, and left a very negative review a few months after I quit. I don't think anyone other than the higher-ups lasted very long there. We were seen as disposable. You weren't safe even if you made a good percentage of donations, because the second you disagreed with them, you would be terminated. And not even just disagree, but also if you had a health issue of some kind that required you to take a day off. One time someone put in the chat asking if they could take the rest of their shift off, as a close family member had died. The chat was deleted under a minute later, and they were deactivated. The company is a Canadian company called CauseWorks. Hellfreezer's note: having looked at some additional links shared to me by the author for the story, the CEO does seem very unprofessional and, well, I'm not going to get rude, but I would question their professionalism and how they've been conducting themselves in response to critique of the company. Although I would love to see the emails he claimed he had regarding the author of the article he was critiquing about their conduct. 4. Been working at my company, bank, for almost a year and a half now. It's been good, with good benefits, but things are changing, and they are not good. I did phone calls for a year and have worked emails and chats for the past 6 months or so. I used to take 30 to 40 calls a day and did very well month over month with my stats. They're very strict about a good customer experience, and I always provide it and provide accurate info. Unfortunately, it was recently announced they are being bought out by another company, pending regulatory approval, and ever since then they've gone and made pretty drastic changes to policies and procedures, and quality has become very strict and affected many people on my team. And looks like the company is setting people up for failure before they start laying people off. First, they changed the entire procedure for authenticating customers, but the system we use auto-populates with the required verification questions, but still shows the questions we are not supposed to ask, and we actually have to bypass the security verification screen for them to be considered verified. Second, they completely changed the additional verification list, which says that we need to do additional verification for. It's omitted a bunch of things we still have to verify, and it's not clear at all. They've also removed the notices saying to complete additional verification in the actual procedures of the individual processes, despite the same procedures telling other departments to complete the verification, causing confusion and leading to markdowns. It makes no sense at all and looks very rushed. Most recently, they marked me down because a customer asked if we have any physical locations to visit. We do. But they set an announcement last year stating that if the customer does not live in the state where it's located, we do not tell them we have a physical location to prevent fraud. I told the customer no, as she lived across the country, and I was marked down despite sending the screenshot of the notice because they deleted the actual notification from the system but didn't notify anybody that we should be giving that information out. Makes no sense at all. I've been getting very burnt out with this job and I'm nearing my breaking point. I'm trying to hold out in the event we do get laid off so I can get severance, but damn, this is too much sometimes. 4. This is from years ago, but under the current circumstances we all need a bit of light relief. Any mistakes in terminology or similar are mine mostly through length of time since it happened. So, this was a TAPS customer. They owed us money and just didn't want to pay. You know the sort. Think the world owes them something for breathing when in fact they were an oxygen thief. Not exactly the brightest bulbs. Multiple people spoke to TAPS and everyone had the same problem, so it wasn't a personality clash that can happen. The reason why multiple people spoke to them over that week was because the phone kept on cutting off and TAPS would have to call back. My final call. You were through to Merkelurker, how can I help?
I got cut off and my phone lost signal.
Do you want me to call you back on a landline so we don't have this problem again?
No. I only have one phone and only get signal in one part of my house.
Okay, can I take your name? Line goes dead, but modern technology means I can trace the number. I call them back, and even have her file up to save time. Hello, we got cut off again.
Yes, that always happens when I walk around the room.
Do I really need to tell them to not move around, but stand still? Verification takes place, and we establish the call is about an owed balance.
I don't want to pay this, and you can't make me.
There may have been cursing. Please don't swear. We have a number of options to enforce payment, and we would rather not use them. They then proceed to tell me they can do what they want, and that they're joining the army next week, and that we can go screw ourselves. Now, I give a lot of leeway when it comes to swearing. For some people, it's just how they speak, and I don't want to discriminate for cultural reasons. However, I expect to receive the same amount of respect I give others, and swearing at me or being abusive, directed at me, isn't tolerated. I gave this customer more chances than most, because they were young and came across as not having the skills to rein it in. I have asked politely that you not swear, and it is a reasonable request. They responded by saying that soldiers swear all their time. Don't you watch TV? If you join the army, we will be able to take court action and have the bills as well as additional charges deducted from your wages. He informs me that we won't, and he'll get his sergeant to call us on Monday, and he'll tell us where to go. I'm now chuckling to myself. We will need their contact information so we know we can speak to them. They give it to me. Eventually the call winds down as I know I haven't won the battle, but I have enough to win the war. I have new employment details and more than enough to start legal action. It does comfort me somewhat that for all the abuse they gave me and my colleagues, they will be in for a shock. My knowledge of the military is second-hand, but I'm fairly sure that swearing at your sergeant, or whatever rank that takes over basic training, and refusing to follow basic instructions will not last long. 10 days after they were due to report for the start of training, I get a phone call. The voice is familiar. The information is provided, and it is TAPS asking for a repayment plan because they're back living at their house and not in the barracks. It was obvious that they and the army parted ways. I so wanted to ask what happened, but I didn't think it was worth the risk. What little I know about the army is that you cannot voluntarily resign, so they must have been booted out. Similarly, it takes a lot for that to happen early on. I did have a giggle at the schadenfreude, but typing it out, I feel sorry for them more than anything else. Hellfreezer's note, I think what happened here, he was assuming that he joined the army and all his problems would be gone, then realized, or rather the army realized that, well, that boy just wasn't a good fit. They'll take people from all over, but they do still have standards. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Please Hold, episode 30. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, I would appreciate it if you hit that like button there. Lets YouTube know to recommend the video to other people, and we certainly want them to do that. And if you'd like to get these videos a bit early, I'm about to go upload the ones for the week, then you can get access to those on the Monday by supporting me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description of this video. In addition to that, you'll also find a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring, and there's also a Hellfreezer Discord community if you'd like to pop over and join us there. And if you really like today's video and you'd like to leave a tip, you can do that by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath. But please don't think you have to do that, as you never do, but I do very much appreciate it. Okay, I think that's all the business for today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, do you enjoy, if you could only pick one, because I like both, savory or sweet pastries? Like, you get ones filled with apple and like all sorts of things. Like you get your toasted pastries like Pop-Tarts, for example. There's the ones that are more like flaky, like puff pastry kind of things. Or then they're the ones, the savory kind, where it's filled with steak or chicken or cheese and onion. They're all very yummy. I think if I could only pick one, I'd probably choose the savory, as I do enjoy them a bit more, but I am making myself hungry for Pop-Tarts now. Anyway, let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this was in relation to people who recycle, and do you pay a lot of attention as when you're recycling? And today's answer comes from Brianna Kuba. I recycle as much as I possibly can. My biggest challenge is plastic bags, not shopping bags, that seem to be used so much for packaging. A lot of the bags are not labeled Type 2 or Type 4, HDPE or LDPE. Municipal recycling does not take plastic bags here in Pennsylvania, so I have to rely on returning them to retailers. Most retailers only take one or the other type, but not both, so it can be frustrating. I think it's the same here from what I recall. They only take certain types of packaging in the plastic bin. In my plastic bin, we put plastic, glass, bottles, and jars, and cans. And now that I'm back on the energy drinks, I use more cans than I have been, so they go in the recycling bin as well. But I don't think they take bags. What I generally do, if it's a shopping bag, I've got so many of these things, I'm really running out of places to put them, is I use the reusable bags, and I reuse them till they're falling apart and I can't do anything else with them. And so I don't really have to buy shopping bags anymore, unless I've been out for something else and not planning on shopping, in which case I'll get the cheap store bag, unless I do have it in the budget. Money's tight for everybody these days, but if I have it in the budget, I'll get the reusable one, because I know I will reuse it. So what I generally do, if I do have to get like the plastic bag to carry groceries and things in, that's just going to be a bin liner at some point. I'll use that to put trash in, and at least it's getting a second use to some degree. It's not ideal, but it does help. But but we all do what we can in our own ways to get through it, right? But ultimately, I think the biggest responsibility for managing recycling is it's only partly on us, the consumers. It's partly on like the big business and the government as well. And I mean, they have to institute real change, lasting change in the infrastructure, how they do things. It can't just be demonstrative things like we're getting rid of plastic bags, so the burden is now on you guys to bring your own. That really just saves them money in the long run. Once people got used to it, it's just saving them money. So I really doubt their sincerity when they do things like that. But I'm often cynical when it comes to like large corporations claiming they support justified causes. Okay, and I could go on a rant about that, but I won't. So until next time. Oh, also thank you for your answer, Brianna Cuba. Or Brianna Cuba, but I keep thinking Barracuda when I hear your name. But thank you very much for your answer. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.